Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining Pivoting Your Supply Chain in the Wake of COVID-19 with Ivo Caixeiro, Executive Vice President of Sales at Living Style. As a reminder, if you have any questions throughout the conversation, please submit them using the Q&A button on the bottom of your screen. Here's your host, Deborah Weinswig, CEO and founder of Coresight Research.
Thanks so much, Drew, and thank you everyone for joining us for today's conversation. I hope you had a chance to check out Coresight's deep dive on contactless retail that we put out this morning. Really interesting as we're thinking about a continuous change in terms of how customers interact with retailers and landlords going forward. We continue to research changes in consumer behavior, global retail and real estate industries, and innovations around the world, and want to thank all of you for your support during these times. We're honored to have Ivo Caixeiro with us this morning. As Drew mentioned, he's an EVP of sales at Living Style, which is the furniture and home furnishings arm of the Fung Group. He joined Li & Fung almost 2 decades ago as a sourcing and quality manager for Hard Home. And he has a really unique combination of experiences in sourcing, product development, supply chain management skills, and these are mixed with marketing, sales, and brand strategy, which is why he's been so successful. Ivo has had an amazing track record in developing brands and generating brand extensions, with distribution ranging from luxury to mass. Some of his most recent initiatives include the development and distribution strategies of fashion brands such as Tommy, DKNY, and Elle Decor, or more traditional furniture brands such as Thomasville within the home product category. With that, as this is one of the hottest categories right now, we have so much to talk to you about. So Ivo, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, Deborah, for the kind words.
So as we, you and I have had some really interesting conversations around some of the changes already, as we're, kind of July 2nd here in the home industry in 2020. Can you perhaps, kind of talk about what you have seen and what you expect to see, especially as we probably are all working from home a bit longer than expected?
Yeah, so, the home category is, if anything, at this stage, the winner of the pandemic, right? So, any retailer that is selling home right now will tell you that their sales in the home category are up, most of them double digits. So, the pandemic has definitely accelerated this situation, although home has been growing, as a category has been growing over the last 6-7 years, due to other circumstances as well, not because people was necessarily, buying new houses at a faster rate, although they were, but, the key was new segments were showing up. So people renting more houses, investing in second properties and things like that, had accelerated the home industry a little bit. But with the pandemic, what we noticed was a high demand to really engage the place where people is living right now and improving the quality of life. So we have seen categories like home office, outdoor, and living really revamping on sales.
And are there specific categories within retail that have surprised you or price points that are selling?
Yes, definitely. So, if you look what happened over the last 3 months with the lifestyle stores closed because, that channel was considered non-essential, and most of them closed their stores and their distribution centers. They basically put their energy on their online and shipping to the consumers. So the sales at that level have slowed down a little bit. In other hand, the sales at essential guys, the mass retailers that managed to be open, picked up really fast. And with that, the sales of more everyday products, core products, essential goods that people really need to their house have been having a best track record for sure. We saw, price points that have been traditionally, sharp, taking, space in the market, and some of those, essential retailers or considered essential retailers gaining market share across categories that probably weren't their best categories at that time. Like home office, for example, we saw a lot of retailers that did not add this category well established, gaining market share and becoming meaningful for that category. Same with living, particularly with the upholstery side. and outdoor, believing or not, everyone is dying to get out, but I think people is getting out on their yards really, really fast, because the outdoor category has been really, really popular too.
And can you talk about, as we've kind of moved through this crisis so far this year, what did people like buy originally, as we all started to shift to this work from home? And now that we've all been in our homes longer than we ever expected, what are people buying now, right? As they are like, oh, I've seen that couch every day for the last, 90 days.
Not really. I think there's two things. People is really buying more product for home because they are spending more time at home, but they are being way more conscious about that buy. It's not necessarily an aesthetic buy anymore, right? So, if you think this way, if you think there's, on your life, there's 3 or 4 big buys that you take family decisions, right? So the house is probably the big buy that everyone decides in family. The second one will be probably your car. And the third one is really furniture. You don't go out and buy furniture by yourself traditionally. You take that decision as a family, it's comfortable, is not, is the sofa really important or not for the house? Is that piece unique enough for the house? So we see those categories taking, really big traction right now. And we see, people buying more, comfortable items. Therefore, upholstery has been one of the categories that is doing really well. Then home office is a result of this situation for sure. People is working more from home. Therefore, they need a better chair, they need a better desk, or they need a formal office because they are having, video calls and they don't want to be seen working from the couch, right? So, so home office is basically a need, but then you have the other part that wasn't necessarily a need, is adding to the comfort of the house, and people is being more strategical. So it's like almost, so if I'm going to use the house a little bit more often, how do I use it, and what do I need for that?
So it's probably extending the home and home improvement. And if you think about kind of the last recession, those were categories that really suffered, and it is very interesting. So that goes back also to, right, is everyone's planning, right? It's hard to, you can't, certainly 2019, you can't look at as a barometer for, kind of what to buy and how much you think will sell. How are you working with companies from a planning perspective and even within your own organization?
Well, that has been the biggest challenge. To be quite honest, the market is quite low in inventory right now. Even though many retailers canceled their orders on the very beginning of this pandemic, many retailers just decided to cancel their orders and all their shipments. And that affected the supply chain dramatically. So, but with that happening, a lot of other retailers that were a little bit more opportunistic become stronger. And that inventory starts flowing out really fast. So now we are facing a bigger challenge, is that there is no production capacity for the demand we have. And with restrictions on traveling, with restrictions on developing new products, you see, the supply chain moving really fast from, countries that were, stable and had long-term projections, to countries that are closer to you, that, even US manufacturing is happening at a faster pace because of this. So, the biggest challenge we are facing as a company is to really understand, is this demand here to stay, or is this demand here just, a spike until the end of the year, or until this gets a little bit more resolved? So that's the first question we are doing to ourselves. Then the second question is, how do we create a diverse supply chain that can, respond to this demand in the future? Because, whether it is COVID-19 or a new virus, we have to, or something else, we have to be ready for a more diverse supply chain. We cannot be disrupted because of one situation.
So, and obviously we had the tariffs last year, so it's kind of been, a back-to-back challenges for the industry. As you think about nearshoring or onshoring, where are you able to find production capacity right now, and how does that, just change your own entire supply chain as you're able to move production, into new geographies versus what you've had in the past?
Yeah, good question. So the tariff really hit the furniture industry and the home industry in general in 2018, right? End of 2018, that was a big hit, and almost everyone moved away from China into Vietnam. That was the easy solution for 99% of the industry. Coming from originally we were part of the Fung Group, so that has given us a big leverage on the sourcing base, because we are a multi-sourcing company, and we have always been, is part of our DNA, and that is has played in our advantage. Throughout the last 3-4 years, even before the tariff, we had made huge efforts to create a supply chain that was as diverse as US manufacturer, Mexico manufacturer, European manufacturer, including countries like Romania, Poland, Ukraine, Italy, Portugal. So countries that are not quite they are big on the home industry for certain areas, but not they were not as big in furniture or other categories that we deal in, and we developed those countries. So we have been playing now these cards to the market and offering our retailers solutions from Europe, from Mexico, from US, and the retailers that have been dealing with us, they are long partners. They trust us, and they embrace this new market really fast. So we still have a huge demand from Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, and Southeast Asia in general. But we have managed to integrate Mexico, US, and European production really fast in our supply chain.
And as we think about kind of supply chain end to end, how is design changing with the majority of the workforce remote right now?
Well, on the short term, there's almost no design happening on the very short term. What people is trying to do is to focus on their core, right? So, most of the retailers are really focused on their time on what's core to them, what are the categories they need to work with, and maximize those. And that is basically because they don't know what's next. So, for companies like us that are traditionally on the forefront of design, we continue to develop at fast pace. We have in fact embraced more designers and more development, because we want to come stronger at the end of this crisis with new techniques, new technologies, adding new designs and technology to the mix of products. So we still believe that design and technology associated with design will be the biggest advantage for the future. So while people work from home, they want things to be seamless on whether they are working from their sofa or from their desk. They want their computer to be able to be charged. They want to, they don't want to get up just because they have to. They, their phone can be right next to them and things like that. So we are putting a lot of effort on the design side to continue that development and make things functional and practical.
And as you think about kind of your needs from an organization perspective, what kind of talent is required in this environment to really adapt to a supply chain that's been, kind of more dynamic than we've ever seen?
Well, very good question. So, talent is, and in particular, on the home industry, is, the market is quite full of good designers. So I must say that, on the design side, we have a lot of good resources in the market. Where there are some expertise sometimes lacking is on the technical side, making things happening, because the way things happen in Asia are different the way things happen in US. So the way you manufacture in Asia is different than US or Europe. So having technical skills to adapt to each area of the globe is the most important thing for us. So we see more and more people approaching us that working from home and trying to develop their skills And we have been really focused on finding people that have the knowledge of the local markets, and they can help us developing the right country and the right supply chain. It's almost like every single region becomes one individual supply chain, and you have to have expertise on that supply chain. And as much as we try to be global, and this is interesting because, a couple of years ago, we were all talking about, being so global and one person having all the knowledge about the industry. And now you have to also be more local and be so good at what you know locally that, you become, an advantage because of that knowledge.
Thank you. And one thing that's been on my mind almost since the beginning of this crisis was just returns, and whether it's in apparel because the consumer can't really see the color or try it on. But I remember way back in my early Wall Street career, I always was fascinated by the home category because it was so much more complex than anyone ever gave it credit for, that a GMM of home at one of the large retailers said to me, one of the greatest challenges we have in home is returns. And there's, damage happens on the way into the house, damage happens on the way out of the house if it's returned, and just, kind of being able to sell that item again. How are you seeing, in this new environment, as people are shopping more virtually than they ever have, what's happening if you think about the supply chain on the reverse logistics side? And also, what are retailers doing to decrease returns as well? Yeah,
so the market has evolved substantially over the last 4 or 5 years in regards to logistics and returns in the home industry. Companies really mastered, the e-commerce puri players really pushed, the omni-channel guys to develop their logistics really well. Because, when you are shipping items to someone home for free almost, you really force the other guys that were charging to really improve their service. So what you have seen is, the white glove service across the omni-channel players had become really strong. And people is, better at doing those deliveries. There are more options. The technology has also been developed to a point that you book a deliver and you know where your, deliver is, when it's going to arrive on your door, you are ready for it. And those things have helped to reduce the returns. The other part of it is, companies that, can ship things to your house now tend to give you swatches and offers for you to make the decision even before you see the final item, right? So you can select your fabric. You can order a swatch or a book of swatches and say, I like this fabric, I like this finishing. And that has also minimized the returns. So, the industry has been working towards to minimizing the returns by using technology and then by improving on the logistics side. We saw returns going down over the last 5 years. I think that trend will continue to go down as people becomes more conscious about as well of the process, how expensive it is to ship a furniture piece to your house. The biggest component of that is we are all trying to be more sustainable as well. And sustainability has played an important role on the last decade. And I think it's going to be even more important on the next one. So, as the consumer become more conscious as well, returns are less often created by, the option from customer deciding, I don't like this piece, to really being related with quality and only quality. And when it's a quality problem, then, the retailers are addressing that really fast because, that's another problem.
I mean, you bring up something really important, which is sustainability. How is that impacting your organization in terms of how you continue to evolve your processes? And what are you seeing in terms of how retailers work with you directly along that topic as well?
Yeah, so, that has been a really important topic for us over the years, but it's becoming, important almost every day because it's not just about, where you source your wood or where you source your materials and, how sustainable is the process of production. It's also how sustainable is to develop an item that will last much longer, that will have a future that is not just, someone dumping on the corner, right, when they are done with it. We are addressing those things with the retailers in partnership. I would say retailers are, a big player on that side. They are pushing as vendors to do much better on the sustainability side. There's many things happening on that end right now, starting with the source and the origin of the materials, but also going down to the consumer side, and how can we help the consumer make decisions that are also sustainable to them, and not so fashion driven, but more life driven and more important to their lives and to their moment.
Great. I'm going to turn it over to audience Q&A. We have thank you so much. We have quite a few questions. So let's get started. So from one guest, what has shocked you the most in recent trends? What's been the biggest surprise in demand?
I would say, in terms of products, I think the outdoor category became slightly a shock to me, just because, we have seen the trend growing really fast, but we never imagined that was jumping, because the retailers closed during the time that they should be selling outdoor, right? So for me, it was a shock from the wholesale perspective. The shock was, okay, retailers are closed, outdoor is something that people really goes to the stores, check the product. We thought that will be slightly slower, and in fact, was opposite. It picked up really, really fast, and we had high demands there. From the business perspective, that was a shock. From a more personal experience, I think upholstery and people focus on their comfort, the way they sit, the way they enjoy moments in family around the sofa or the chair. I think that was another category that was quite interesting to see sales picking up.
Great. Next question from the audience. Will supply chain transparency be of greater importance to you and your customers? It's a great question.
Yes, for sure. We see more and more retailers having elaborating programs where we have to be fully transparent, and we embrace those things. To be quite honest, in Europe, that's a standard already, right? So the supply chain in Europe is quite transparent already. So if you supply retailers in Europe, you have to already disclose all those details. So I think US is catching up with that as well. And we embrace that. I think it's really important the consumer know where products are made. That will in fact help consumers making their decisions and be also more sustainable on the future. Knowing that an item didn't have to travel 10,000 miles to get to their door, all those things will matter on the future.
Great, thank you. What do you see as the future of American manufacturing? Are states still offering incentives for manufacturing facilities to come to their geographies?
Yes, yeah, there's still some incentives going on for sure. This administration has made that one of their key points. So we still see that happening. In certain categories will be much easier than others, right? On the upholstery side, again, it's a category that US has always been a big manufacturer of because of the items are so bulky that it's impossible to pay for big logistics all the time. So we see a big opportunity there. And then the other part of it is with retailers creating different flows and different strategies to address the consumer behavior, will be opportunities for smaller players, even local and more local industries, to give trials and to get small productions going on and to try new things. So we see that happening as well, and US has definitely an important role to play on that.
Great, thanks. At the beginning of the crisis, when we saw some significant volatility in the supply chain, how did you and your organization handle that?
Well, the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks of this crisis, when we were forced to lock the offices, stop traveling, everyone got, of course, a little bit scared. What's going on, and how long will this last? So, on the very beginning, we saw orders being canceled, and that was something that we had to deal with. So we had to find warehouses, renegotiate flows and productions with our suppliers. So that wasn't easy, but we are also a well-balanced company. So, we have a good and a steady retail base that was open. So that helped us to balance a little bit things. And I think that proved to us that being a balanced company is more important than ever, and have a distribution strategy that allows you to play, in both worlds. So we reacted quite well, but I have to say that the first 3-4 weeks were difficult because we had to find solutions for holding inventory, adjust manufacturers, and things like that. So, being a strong and very healthy company, we had an advantage. I think other companies may have struggled a little bit because they were in a weaker position to start from. But again, the demand is so high right now that even companies that struggle a little bit, if they got the right support, they can turn around.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then how have trends in the home furnishing market shifted since the pandemic?
Well, I think the major trend we see right now at this moment is really the retailers looking at their core programs, right? So, and before the pandemic, the focus was newness, newness, newness. Everyone wanted to launch a new item every day. The home industry has become, almost, we use this term very often, has become, the Zara world. Like we do new items every day, and everyone wants a new color every day. So it's like when you go to Zara and you have a new color every day on the shelf. So that happened to the home industry because, the manufacturers have managed to create products really fast, to engage the market really fast. And that was a big trend for us. Like, every single day present a new collection, and the retailers will buy that. So the biggest change I have seen in trends is, retailers and our partners are now being a little bit more conservative on the fashion side, and are putting their energy on what can we do better with our core, and let's hold the fashion for a while. It doesn't mean that there is no fashion being integrated. There are still, but it's being more conservative. I think this means that the consumer is looking for a solution that fits a purpose, and not necessarily to satisfy just the need of buying, and is looking at the home category as this needs to be functional and useful to me. So it's a major consumer shift that we are yet to see if it's going to be, a longer shift and a shift on people's mind, or if it's just temporary because of the COVID-19 situation.
Ivo, you and I have talked a lot about this idea of speed and the supply chain, and what does speed mean with, some of the changes in terms of country of origin. How does that just change the entire kind of speed process? And how does that also change the relationship between yourself and the retailers if you can get them product, kind of on a different timetable than you've ever been able to before?
Well, there's almost two different cycles happening in regards to speed. So the industry has become really, really fast over the years because, we are designing fast, engineer fast, and, we can launch items, at much greater pace. And because of that, people got used to develop new collections in less than, 90 days. And, we are talking about hard goods, things that take time to develop. But people really got used to develop really fast. And you see that still happening in some channels. But on the other hand, you see, countries like, Vietnam, Indonesia, Thailand, becoming so full on their manufacturer side that their production lead times are now becoming 3 times longer. And because of that, you are developing really fast, but then your production is much slower. So, and that's where we feel the lack of China. That's when we say, okay, it was good to have China because China was 30 days manufacturing. and now you are on 90 days or 120 days. So retailers are adjusting to that by being smart and creating diverse supply chains, using more domestic sources when they can to satisfy closer to the need, and then playing long bets and forecasting longer. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be the future for some retailers that are not used to that. They will have to adapt, forecasts much longer, and also have partners that are much steady. Before you could change partners very fast, and there was opportunity to, I don't like this partner anymore. Let's just try someone else and find a solution. Right now, you cannot do that without thinking twice, because it's going to affect the new launch, the new product on the floor. So, and that's what we are saying a little bit. So, but again, we shouldn't look at that as a negative thing. Put that in perspective of the sustainability process, and maybe we are doing the right thing on the long term. And that's what we need to start addressing. And instead of being so, negative when we talk about speed, we are trying, as a company, we are trying to be more proactive and talk about, okay, what are we doing better? Let's save time on other ways. Instead of developing too fast and creating so many items, let's be smart about creating the right item and use it at the right time.
Great. As we come to almost our time today, I'm going to get one more audience question. How do you think about the seasonality of your business? And as we move into the back half of the year, what do you predict will change in terms of demand?
Well, traditionally the home category is really strong on the fourth quarter, and basically because it's the quarter where we have more holidays, people gather together at home. If you think through US alone, you have Thanksgiving, you have Christmas, and a few other big holidays, and that's when people really want to get their house together, because they are getting more guests at their house. So the demand for this, the end of the year will be there. Is traditionally there, and it's going to be there again. We see that for sure. But I think the biggest question will be, what's the demand for the first and second quarter of next year? And that's where we are still being a little bit more conservative to see where the situation is heading towards to. And that's the big question mark that we are watching every day. Our retailers are working very close to us, forecasting and planning. And that's where we have to be a little bit more diligent.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Ivo. This is such an amazing discussion. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. We have another call next Thursday at 10 a.m. with Megan Martindale, Global Head of Retail Research at CBRE. And as a reminder, this and all previous webinars are available on our website. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. For those who celebrate, have a great 4th. And Ivo, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you. Nice to see you. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.